Hello, everyone. We're going to be talking about AI at the edge, embedded AI. We have three speakers today. Mainly, we have Thibault de la Fresnaye, who's the VP of Market Product Anticipation over at Orange. We have also Merouane Debbah, who's the Vice President of Huawei France R&D Center, and the director of the Mathematical and Algorithmic Sciences Lab. And we also have Joseph Dureau, who's the CTO of Snips. And so we're going to go to each and every one of them and ask them is essentially why they're here, talking about embedded AI. And we're going to go through several questions afterwards. So Thibault, can you introduce yourself? Tell us how Orange gets into the whole embedded AI problematic.
Yes, good afternoon, everybody. So I'm Thibault Lafresnaye in the Orange Techno Center Group Product Marketing. Yes, of course, we believe that, to answer to your question, we believe that we will need AI everywhere. Of course, in the hardware, and we will speak of that, but also in the cloud, and we will come back on that, because we will need both on both sides. It's a bit like the network. In the network, you have work which is done at home and work which is done in the network.
Merouane?
Okay, so good afternoon, everybody. So my name is Merouane Debbah, and I'm leading the Huawei French Research Center in terms of mathematics in Paris, focusing on 4.5G, 5G, SDN, NFV, and of course AI. As you know, Huawei is a big company which is at the same time on the device. We're selling phones, as you know, and also in the infrastructure where we're number one. We're basically controlling the whole chain. Based on that, we have a strategy, and I'll make, after some announcements I'll be having in the next weeks, where basically we're targeting what we call mobile AI, which is at the same time on-device AI, which is why I'm here in this session, and also in the cloud. And of course, the big question that everybody's asking himself is how you split this, I would say, computing power between the on-device due to latency constraints, due to privacy constraints, and with respect to the cloud AI, where you have much more energy processing and all those aspects. Yeah.
So my name is Joseph. I'm the CTO of Snips. So Snips is a startup based in Paris, very close from here. We're a B2B company, and we're talking to companies building connected devices and who want to put a voice interface in their connected device. We're providing them with a software solution for them to have the possibility for the users to talk to their devices. And what's specific to what we do is that the solution we propose is completely embedded on the device. Everything runs locally. None of the things you say leave the objects you're talking to. So privacy is a big driver for us in doing that. There's other reasons that I guess we're going to talk about. And there's many challenges that are risen by this problem. One of them is hardware. You need to be able to do this very challenging task on very small devices. And the other one is data. Because everything runs on device, because what you say stays on the device, there's no data that goes back to your server. So how do you train models and algorithms in that setting? That's what we're going to talk about.
Okay, so we definitely have at least 2 or 3 philosophies of how to look at AI for the embedded devices. Joseph, can you tell us about the particularities of training algorithm that essentially doesn't require data from the cloud? And then we'll go back to probably something much more adaptable where you actually get data from the cloud.
So how do you train a model when you don't get your user's data? You just train it on a different data set. That sounds kind of obvious, but it's a start. So how do you find data if you don't have your user's data? One solution is to generate it, and that's the nice solution. That's what you would do with a GAN or your model. But the problem with that is very often the information contained in your model is the same kind of information you want in the end to be in your inference model. So there's a kind of a chicken and egg problem here. So the simplest solution to generate data when you don't have any is to ask for people to generate it. So we've been working for over a year now on developing a craft in terms of crowdsourcing data. So any client that comes to us, be it a coffee machine manufacturer, camera manufacturer, or plane manufacturer, they come to us, they describe the use case they want to cover, and for that use case, we're going to generate huge data sets by asking people, so those are called mechanical Turks, to generate data for us. And we have, in that pipe, we have machine learning embedded that controls the quality and does active learning to assist the workers and generate good quality data. So that's a craft that we've been developing, and that's really the key to us today to training models without users' data.
Okay. What about you, Merouane? Can you tell us about the approach that you guys at Huawei have?
Yeah, so first of all, I mean, AI for telecom is a big thing. I'm going to insist on the device because, as you know, you can use AI as the infrastructure is concerned, and we're doing it to optimize the network because basically we can detect failures. It's basically what major companies are doing by using the big data assets that they have. We have a lot of control signals which are going in the network, so we know when something is going to happen, and then we can try to repair it. I'm not going to talk about that. I'm more going to talk about the device here. So the phones we have at the moment are smartphones, but they have nothing smart. They're more what we call personal assistants, meaning you say to the phone what you want, which is already a big difficulty because you're doing some voice recognition there, and then it does it. One of the big things that we want to do in the next year is, of course, to have an intelligent phone with emotion recognition and all these aspects where basically tells you, like, Merouane, you're sick, I feel that you're not looking good, I'll take you a taxi at 5 o'clock, and then you start doing it. We call this a mate because it really becomes a friend and mate, and that's one of the ideas we're pushing at the moment to embed that. To embed that, then, of course, is where the computing platform is going to be embedded in. You have to know that with the technologies that we're going forward, there's a lot of constraints, especially with 5G coming in with latency constraints. Basically, it has to be very rapid. It turns out that we're working, and we made an announcement already on the 2nd of September of a new chip called the Carron 970, where basically we have what we call a dedicated neural processing unit, which basically does AI on that chip there. And the idea, of course, is to be able, whenever you don't have a connection, because you don't always have a connection, your phone has still to be smart, by the way, or basically you have latency constraints or privacy constraints, you can run out the algorithm there. Now, the big work that is to be finalized is basically, we still do, of course, what we call cloud AI. And this is what our strategy about mobile AI is, on-device AI and cloud AI, and bridging both of the aspects and how you split depending on the power consumption that you can have on the device, what kind of limitations you can have, and going there. And remember that the device has a lot of sensors. All these sensors capture a lot of information, and basically the objective is to be able to run more and more processing within the phones with the constraints of size that we have. Yeah, and that's what the Carron is doing, and the phone which is going to embed that Carron is going to be released next week, and it's going to be called the Mate. We have already a Mate series, and that's why we put it there.
What about Orange?
I will bump as more business-oriented reaction, but I will jump on your proposition. Yes, as I said at the beginning, at Orange, we strongly believe that we need AI in the network and AI at home. What for? We need AI first, and perhaps more my business also, in terms of customer relationship, improving customer relationship, keeping customer relationship, improving it thanks to data learning, data machine, and opening this relationship to an ecosystem of services. But we will need also AI to improve our own processes, and we will need AI, and we need AI to improve our offers, be more accurate, more precise. But we must say, seen from our customer point of view, some of our customers are still afraid of AI. They don't speak of AI, they don't say it's AI, but they're afraid, especially, and we will come back on it, about data privacy and learning everything and what's happening and deciding in my place. As I said, yes, we need AI at home, because, as you said, we can save latency, you can do very short, very quick computation. If there is potentially no network, which never happened. If there is no network, it's still working. But and in a sense, you can have the feeling that privacy is more, which is not always the case, because privacy can also be threatened at home now with hacking and so on. But we need AI in the cloud, as you mentioned, because you have a computing power. you can be more specialized because AI is still specialized by domain, because it's so complicated, the natural languages and so on, and the skills. And so you can have computation which is done in the network. When it's in the network, you can access it from anywhere, so you can have a remote access. And of course, storage is key. Update is easier than updating every device at home. So we need both. And as perhaps we will come back on it, we have also a strong concern about privacy and strong concern about be sure that customers are not so much afraid and they understand what's behind.
Well, looking at all the situations that we have in, for instance, Snips talks to us about opt-in type of systems, and Huawei talks about a different type of schemes, as well as Orange, who's basically looking into this. I was wondering, when you have a population of, say, the size of China, don't you have an advantage in terms of size? Size matters. I mean, we already know this in deep learning type of algorithm, that is the larger the size, the better your algorithm are doing and everything. Do you think that, it's a question for the three of you, that this opt-in process somehow solves the issue of size mattering as much?
Maybe, yeah, to react to that. So imagine, yeah, so your company, you have a product in China. So of course, if you're collecting your users' data, you're going to collect a lot of it. But very often, the bottleneck is not so much the data, the amount of data you can upload to your server, because that data, very often, either your algorithm understood it, and it's not really useful to add it to the training data. The really interesting data is the use cases that your algorithm didn't understand, and in that case, you cannot feed them to your algorithm. So actually, the bottleneck is having people label that data. So look at it and tag it so that you can add it to your train set. And very often, the bottleneck is going to be that. At Google, they have armies of people doing that. Amazon, they have so many people that actually they did a service that we're thankful for because that we're using it. So I think, yeah, if you're in China, the real bottleneck is not is somewhere where you don't imagine it is, but it's there.
Yes, to answer, yes, I think we, at least at Orange, we are late at collecting data. You are right, we shouldn't collect it by chance. We should structure the collection by use cases, domain, and so on. Perhaps which worried me even more is competencies, in a sense. I think we say we are lacking of developers. It's more precise than developers. Yes, we need developers to develop the bots, the robots, and so on. But we need special skills on language learning, on the bot building, and so on. And I think this is, as we are in France AI, this is a key issue for Europe. Because even our best students in the schools, we are speaking, they are going straight to the Silicon Valley. So I think that's collectively, operators, local startup, and so on. How can we gather, seduce engineers, young engineers? The younger they are, the smarter, the more they learn us some things. That's for me the key issue. Yes, data collecting, but resources, competencies.
Also, just to build up on that, there's so in big models, and the advantage of having a lot of data. Actually, what you see emerging are two types of problems. So one type of problem is a generic one. So for example, transcribing voice into phonemes, those are like generic problems. So those are called acoustic models. And what's interesting is that initiatives like the Open Voice initiative led by Mozilla, they're collecting a lot of voice samples donated by people to train a generic model that anyone can use. So that's one example of initiatives, but on the image recognition front, you have the MobileNet neural network that has been pre-trained by Google and open as open data, so the pre-trained model is being open for anyone to use, and that actually has been integrated by Apple in part of their Core ML framework on iOS. So you see that for these generic problems, either private initiatives led by the huge companies or foundations like Mozilla are moving the needle, basically doing the work and making it available for anyone. And then once you have that generic layer that's done, then it's much easier for smaller actors like us, and actually we do that, to do the last piece of the puzzle, which is answering specific needs for specialized AI.
I don't think it has something specific to China. I mean, we're in a global market, as you know. Huawei is selling their products everywhere, and we're reaching much of the revenues of Huawei are done outside China more than inside China. Just for information. Now, I think what's mostly important here about the big data is that the fact that you start doing things on the device and the cloud opens. And I'm very thrilled about that. A lot of opportunities for researchers to start playing with advanced machine learning algorithms, to start exactly creating big data out of small data. Collaborative AI is one, doing federated learning are one, extracting models where you start pushing your model from one device to the other and trying to learn it better. I think this is a very good experience by having this computing platform. This is also something else that Huawei is going towards. We're not an operator, meaning that we're not getting the data of the users. Basically, we provide the platform, we provide the infrastructure. And then, of course, we have hopefully good colleagues and also our customers, which are basically playing with the data in the way it should be done, basically.
There is another issue that comes in for this embedded AI that is we're essentially optimizing for the hardware, either on the cloud or on the device. But at some point in time, we're doing some type of training of those algorithms on one person or two person in the room. So we have different devices, not just phones, but things like Amazon Echo. And so we have other devices. And we have people living in those places, and they are changing. Their voices are changing. They're getting bigger when you have kids and so forth. How do you foresee how embedded AI is going to cope with life, to just life, as opposed to having static models of how to train things?
Yes, as you said, I strongly believe that and Orange will focus first on our own devices because it's a part of our offer and so on. But we strongly believe, as it's seen everywhere in Las Vegas or elsewhere, that AI and conversational services will be embedded in a lot of different devices at home, third-party devices, and so on. The key point, and probably the role of embedded AI will be, as you mentioned, to, from the start, identify who is speaking and what is his mood, and then probably go very quickly to the cloud. But this first filter, yes, it's locally done. So that's with the progress which is done. I think it will be key.
Yeah, I think it's a difficult point, but we're taking it into account. As you know, one of the big targets related to 5G is what we call immersive reality. We have augmented reality, virtual reality, and immersive reality. So it's not just going to be about people, it's going to be about objects. And of course, taking this into account is one of the big issues we're trying to tackle. We're not totally sure that AI is the breaking solutions for all the problems of the future. So if you really want to distinguish all the people speaking, things like that, AI is going to be a part of that, but we have also several technologies behind trying to be able to cope with the fact that people are going to be working, living in an immersive world with all that information which is going around, and how you do this splitting, as I was telling, between storage, caching, computing, at the edge, on the fog and on the cloud, because as you know, this is the kind of different levels that we're trying to put in our infrastructure at the moment.
Yeah, so the idea of having an AI continuously adapting and continuously evolving, for me there's kind of a fantasy to that, and it's kind of like a big fallacy that's pushing us to collect data all the time. So first of all, there's an aspect is that there's some problems for which you don't need to continuously adapt and continuously improve the AI to meet the need. So maybe at in the first term you needed a lot of data to reach the required level of performance, but when it works, it works. So for example, in what we do, if you want to order a coffee, I don't need the AI to continuously learn and to continuously bring back data to a server to improve the model of understanding me ordering a coffee. When that task is done, it's simple enough that it's done. And the objective is to have it done, and it shouldn't be an excuse for permanent data collection. And for me, so yeah, you have to disentangle what's AI and the tasks that need more influx of data like this. And for me, what you said, that you and I are in the same room and we need a model that adapts to you and I, for me, it's not so much in the machine learning model being retrained and adapted to you or I. It's more about context awareness. It's taking the output of maybe a generic machine learning model and inputting some specific information that's very structured, that's very specific about the situation in which you and I are. So maybe just my identifier and you, and it remembers that you and I are different. And then you're going to adapt the reaction and the interface to the context in which it is. But for me, continuously training machine learning models and using that as an excuse to upload data is kind of a big fallacy.
Okay. Well, I think I'm getting the sense that AI is more about context than just training models continuously. And I think it's a great remark because we are out of time. But, well, thank you very much for getting that discussion going. And, well, thank you again.